Was I not crystal clear? What part of being polite, not spitting out rude comments, and not talking about Vinny ever again do you guys not understand? Seriously, didn't your parents ever teach you to be respectful? Hello everyone, this is 1995 Express, and I'm back with a new video. You know, the thought occurred to me that not everyone who has watched the previous video seemed to have watched the other videos discussing about the Great Railway Show. Either that or some people just don't pay full attention to what I say, or they seem to have forgotten some facts. So let's recap. The first video I talked about my idea of having the Great Railway Show be adapted into a Railway Series television series adaptation following the style The Adventure Begins. Second video, I talked about speculations about the Great Race and a few things about the Great Railway Show adaptation, as well as the options I have for bringing it to life. Third video was about the confirmations about the Great Race and some predicaments concerning the Great Railway Show. And the last video was of me telling a lot of you to stop bugging me about Vinny and discussing about the issue with Mallard. Which reminds me, Stan! Nigel! Where's the release of Vinny? Well, don't blame us. We're not responsible for who grabs all the attention. Right, well, just the voiceovers, not the distributors. Then why the release of Spencer? And Rajiv and Percy? What happened to Carlos and Shane? Carlos and Shane weren't ready yet, apparently. Procrastination. And the distributors said that they thought since Vinny was streamlined and that it wouldn't bug anyone else, that they decided to release Spencer in his place. Streamlining wasn't the point! The point was to end this entire conflict about what nationality Vinny is. Now get that through the distributors' heads! So, aside from all that, I suggest that you guys watch all the videos that I just listed in order and get the full recap so that you know what I'm talking about. I have all the videos in a playlist so you can watch them all in one sitting. Alright, what's the subject of the video today? Mallard? Jiminy, don't these streamliners ever cut anyone a break? So, what's the problem with Mallard now? Everyone is saying that his record will be beaten. Will! You heard that correct. Will! Not even a might. Not even a could. Will! And who's the supposed engine that might beat Mallard's record? A Pennsylvanian T1. Yes, they're going to build a replica T1 class engine with no tourist intention whatsoever other than to try and beat Mallard's record. Now, I understand the reasons why you viewers brought this up, since in the last video I claimed that Mallard has a record that was unsurpassable by any other engine, and apparently I was unaware of the T1 rebuild. Well, actually, I was brought to the attention of it, I just didn't know what the intentions of the rebuild actually were. But this whole issue about the T1 is a bit debatable. Personally, I find the whole claim that the T1 will beat Mallard's record is putting it rather boisterously, and for three good reasons. One, any experienced railway driver will tell you that a steam engine's activity is never predictable.
Fun job. It can be challenging on some days if the boiler's not doing what you want it to do, but any trip where you can make it up and back safely is a good day. So
some days an engine will be responsive to the driver and will work fine in tandem. Other days an engine might be irresponsive and will give the driver a hard time. Some days an engine might run fine down the line, other days it might burst a valve or blow a pipe or something. Certainly this whole T1 experiment is going to take place in the future, and no one knows for certain what will happen in the future, especially concerning a steam engine. So none of you can say that the T1 will beat Mallard's record, because what if it doesn't? 2. While specifications of the T1 does show higher numbers than Mallard has, Perhaps less is more, and that being lighter gives Mallard the possible advantage over the Shark-Nose Duplex. The T1 has been known for being difficult to maintain, being very smoky, and have a tendency of slipping, both upon starting and while running. Every time. This was because the T1 was designed with a faulty spring equalization. Now, T1s were also fitted with a different valve gear. Instead of the universal Valchertz valve gear, T1s had rotary poppet valves. Now, while these valves make running at high speeds easier, they have a tendency to be strained at speeds over 100 miles per hour. Slipping made it worse. The T1s can slip their wheels at 120 miles per hour, and this can actually damage the poppet valves. So even at a point in which these valve gears can get damaged, does the T1 have a chance of making 140 miles per hour without an accident? Let me ask you this, can a Grizzly reach maximum speed with a faulty blow-off valve? If these guys think they can push a T1 to 140 with the risk of damaging their valve gear, an essential assembly of allowing the steam cycle inside the cylinders to occur, they can just kiss their project goodbye. I mean, Mallard barely managed to survive his speed record, finishing with a melted big end bearing of his third cylinder. There's very little chance that a T1 would be able to reach 140 without a severe catastrophe. Aerodynamics and smoke is another thing to note. No offense to Raymond Loewy, he is a very good designer, but Sir Nigel Gresley, he had the right idea of designing steam engines. The sloping front of the engine allows the air to be guided upwards, giving the locomotive a smoother passageway through the air molecules and a faster advantage. In fact, the sloping nose is so effective that it's been adapted onto several other high-speed trains, notably the HSTs, the APT, the LRCs, the TGVs, the AGVs, the TRs, and the ICE, to name a few. Specifically for the A4s and P2s, the sloping front, especially around the area of the chimney, is very effective in terms of wind drafts. The front guides the air upwards and into the stream of smoke from the chimney, pushing the smoke upwards into the sky and out of the crew's eyes, giving them better visibility. The T1s, on the other hand, had shark noses, which is streamlining like the A4s, but turned on its side, so instead of propelling the air upwards, it cuts into the air in a horizontal way, making the drafts go down either side of the boiler. The shark noses also rest on top of the flat surface, which pushes against the wind, making speed pickup harder, a difficulty that the streamliner's purpose was to avoid in the first place. T1s have it half and half. It also doesn't help the fact that shark noses don't guide the wind upward into the stream from the funnel, so the smoke is not being pushed out of the crew's sight, rather it hugs the boiler like smog. No wonder they were considered smoky. And for the third reason, this is the Pennsylvania Railway we're talking about. They're notorious for making claims that their engines exceeded 126 miles per hour. Remember the 7002? The speed for that engine was based on 2 passing times recorded by separate observers at 2 different points 3 miles apart. The record was speculated by observers. Same goes to the theory that the T1 exceeded 126 miles per hour. It was only observed by a technician who claimed that the T1 hit 140 miles per hour. Pure speculation! The Pensy will say anything to outshine its competitors. So to those of you who claim that the future T1 will beat Mallard, you're only judging speculation. It was never officially recorded or determined, so you're only voicing your opinions based on information that hasn't been proven true yet. So don't assume that the T1 will beat Mallard, because you don't know what will happen in the future. Now, I will admit defeat if the T1 beats Mallard's record in the future, but I don't want anyone telling me, "I told you so," and be a jerk about it. Now, until I hear about the test runs and time trials of the T1, I will just stick with Mallard's record being the definitive, and I don't want anyone telling me otherwise. This brings me to another issue I'd like to discuss. Whenever I look at comments, I want to see comments that are supportive, informative, and respectful. This includes comments that gives positive cheers for good ideas, advice on what to do or not to do, and spoken with clean language with no rudeness whatsoever. I'm not saying that I don't see this, but I have recently been getting a lot of comments that don't follow these requirements at all. Examples of these ignorant comments are, "Oh, you did this, good for you," or "Am I the only smart person around here?" or "Your way is wrong, my way is the only right way," or "Don't know how to do that, do it this way, duh!" And the whole lot that have any of the 7 dirty words and all of their duplications as listed by George Carlin. Look guys, I don't know whether you are empathetic or not. If you aren't, you should start being so right now, because these comments are very stressful for me to look at. Like I said, I have 3 film projects that I'm working on as well as college work, and to just read these offensive comments drain my energy levels that I need to put into my work. Some of you might be wondering how these comments drain my energy. It's because they are all comments that are just asking for a fight. Look guys, I don't want to pick a fight with anyone, because not only does it drain my energy, but it also makes me lose my focus from my own work because my fighting instincts are challenged. In fact, recently I've been having a lot of stress in my chest recently, and yeah, it's gotten to a point where I can't tolerate it anymore. Now, if you feel like I may have missed a fact or gotten something incorrect or done something that I shouldn't have, constructive advice or creative criticism are very welcome. Truthfully, the missed facts and incorrect stuff and some things that I shouldn't have done, they were never meant to be the main focus of any of the videos. But if it's something that you feel like you should point out, you're welcome to do so in a polite fashion. But I don't appreciate insults, profanities, accusing comments, and name-calling because it's really inappropriate. It makes the whole lot of you look like jerks rather than people I'd like to be friends with. Now let me ask you this. What do you hope to gain if you're always fighting off everyone else? You're not gonna get a decent number of friends, you're gonna get everyone to ignore your creative work, you're gonna have everyone back away from you because either they've heard bad things about you or they've felt hurt by you and don't want to be with you. There's nothing you can gain from acting so rudely towards your fellow YouTubers and your fellow Thomas fans and the lot like that. And I especially don't like the lot of you acting like smart Alex, saying that they're the only ones who know everything and assuming that everyone else is dumb. Well, guess what? No one knows everything. Any one of us is liable to make a mistake. You may think that you know everything, but you don't. It's a big world that we live on, and no one has the ability to know every single detail about animals, minerals, vegetables, past, present, future, no matter how devoted they are to studying. So don't act like otherwise, because you're only going to dig yourself into a hole and end up embarrassing yourself in front of everyone. Humility is a vital learning curve in life, whether you want it or not, and appreciation and acceptance are good practices to follow. You can develop your life so much more if you do. Some people apparently need to learn that. And while on the subject of Mallard, someone has claimed, and that someone is one of the people who is acting like smart Alex, that Mallard should be female. Really? Where do you get that idea, Cactus190706? That was just a fan creation. For me personally, I don't think Mallard has a feminine engine. I don't mean to be offensive, but I just don't think that. I mean, say the name Mallard. What does the name sound like? To me, Mallard sounds more masculine, and in the illustrations of him, he looks masculine. Also, the Thomas Creative Collective portrayed him as male, and those videos are released by the official Thomas YouTube channel. In fact, if asked, I'd bet the majority of Thomas fans will say that Mallard is male. So to that particular YouTuber who said so, don't say your opinion like it should be the definitive answer, because what if no one else agrees? Like I said earlier, Humility, acceptance, and appreciation are vital for developing your life. I highly recommend you try it out. But if you don't like, don't agree with, or appreciate what I say or do, kindly go away and find something that you do like. But don't leave any profanities on my channel because you're only going to drive yourself into a rut, and I don't appreciate profanities or getting into quarrels, especially not in the state of being that I'm currently in. It's unwelcomed, uncalled for, undeserving, and especially unappreciated. I mean, I don't do any of the negative stuff that I listed to any of my viewers, and if in the case in which I do cause any offense, it's always towards a fictional character. They don't even exist, so what's the big deal anyways? It's not to say that I don't want to be ignorant to anyone who might feel offended, but it's all for the cause of comedy, and like I said before, it's never meant to be the main focus of the video. You know what I think the problem is with these people who leave negative comments? These guys are all stuck. That's right, a lot of you who leave negative comments, you're all stuck, in a state of denial, because you're afraid. You don't want to accept the possibility that you might be right or wrong, you don't want to face shame or humility, you are all denying every other person's opinion and accepting your own opinion as the true opinion, all out of the fear that you might be seen as the weaker person and want to deny that fact. Well, let me tell you this. You only get stronger if you face your fear, if you accept humility, if you accept the fact that you're wrong, because it helps you to learn and develop better. There is no strength in denial because denial doesn't give you strength to move on and develop. It just leaves you stuck in this one state of being, and possibly for a long time stay weak in that state. So accept your mistakes, face your fears, and develop your better self. Well, that went farther off topic than I expected. Became more of a video on psychology. Let's talk about the Great Railway Show project. To start off, I have found a good number of people who might be able to proofread the script. I just need to get in touch with a couple of YouTubers and offer them the chance of proofreading it. The next thing I want to talk about is the materials. I want to remind everyone that I like working with practical models and sets, and I want to use the HO00 scale models because that's the field that I want to work with in my other projects. So this means that I don't wish to use trains or train simulator for any of my projects because, like I said before, I want to be hands-on creative and not rely on some generic computer software to work on such projects. Besides, if the Great Railway Show ever does become a TCC project, I don't think using trains or any other computer software is in their fields. I also want to address some of you YouTubers about the issue of Aerolite. Be mindful about what you recommend to me, because I've been getting responses, a couple of which are entirely useless to me, such as getting a whiff model and altering it or using a CGI model of whiff. How am I supposed to get an HO00 scale model of Aerolite if they don't even make a model of whiff in that scale? And also, how will CGI models help me when I'm working with model railroading? I don't have the software to create CGI models. So next time I ask for recommendations on where to find HO00 scale models, at least acknowledge the details I describe and make your suggestions useful to me. Some of you made the right suggestions, looking for a different model and scratch building it into Aerolite. It might add on to the budget of the project though, so I decided to look for a different alternative. I managed to find one, though I don't know how good it'll be, but it might be worth a try. Any of you familiar with the YouTuber Scarlari fan? I've noted he's worked on many custom HO00 scale models, two of them being Aerolite and Whiff. If I can have some way to contact him and ask him about providing me with the materials needed to construct Aerolite, that would be great. Speaking of the budget, after calculating the budget needed to buy the National Collection in HO scale, I felt kind of bad for asking so much out of you guys. As I've said before, should this project come to life, I would take responsibility of shooting all the scenes at the National Railway Museum so as not to trouble anyone else for purchasing new models or spending time making custom models. Obviously, the budget is too high for everyone to contribute to, so I decided to search for alternatives to make this easier for everyone. Now I had to be mindful about how to work this out, as some of the museum collection engines are static and some are runners. Here's a list of the two. Static models are Duchess of Hamilton, Bolton, Nigel, and Iron Duke. The running models are Mallard, Sophia, Robert, City of Truro, Aerolite, Evening Star, Green Arrow, Box Hill, Flying Scotsman, and Dan. Now, occasionally eBay offers one or two of the specific 00 scale models for a decent price under the $100 pound mark, so it lowers the budget somewhat, but chances at grabbing these models are slim, so rapid action will be required. I've also looked into other alternatives and found that Dapol makes unpowered assembly kits of the Rocket, City of Truro, and Evening Star for very good prices. However, I don't know whether these models can be pushed or pulled along by wire, or if their wheels move at all. If they don't, I can find some way to make them do so. I'm creative, I look for solutions. And instead of going for the normal Hornby range or Bachmann model of Mallard, I will be going for the Hornby Railroad range model, as it's cheaper. Flying Scotsman, I'm sure I can find a good model of him for a good price on eBay, and I can just modify him to fit in the cannon. So that makes it Rocket, City of Truro, Evening Star, Aerolite, Mallard, Flying Scotsman, and Dan, who have either the best or most likely chance of having their budgets reduced. I still need to find a good terrier to use for Box Hill and a Q1 to use for Nigel. Green Arrow is a bit tough to find, but I'm still searching. Just note that this will be a gradual procedure, purchasing the engines. It won't be instantaneously. The others are a bit trickier though, as the initial models I found for them are the only models I can find best available, but I'm still searching for alternatives. Before I close off, I want to mention Mallard's role in the Great Railway Show story. Now, one of you gave a good suggestion, having the story take place before the TCC specials. Question is, how to make that evident? Well, the first thing I would have to do would be to scratch off any characters that would appear during that time period. This would include Ryan and Philip. This would also mean replacing all the scenes that would take place on the Harwick and Augsburg branch, and shoot them all on Thomas's branch line. But of course, it's the process of filming, making changes to suit the project, yada yada yada. Daisy, of course, will still be the prominent character, but her exchanges and dialogue have moved back to being with Lauren, Toby, and Percy instead of Duck and Ryan. I would also like to point out that I'm adding another antagonist to the National Collection to coincide with Mallard, that being Deltic. Initially I was against using Deltic as he was already a villain in the British Railway stories, and performed rather impressively, I might add. But recently I decided, it's Thomas the Tank Engine, what the heck, the only difference would be that Deltic would have a face and he can speak more. Don't worry, Dapol also makes a kit model of him and he's going to be one of the static models, so no problems with the budget. Essentially, the characteristics of Deltic will be the more aggressive bully, while Mallard will take on the more sophisticated bully. This will bring down much of the tension from Mallard and make him more polite. I've given the more aggressive lines he had to Deltic so that there's a difference between the two. Anyway, that's all from me. Be sure to post your thoughts and contributing suggestions in the comments section below, and remember, be polite with no rude attitudes whatsoever. If you guys continue to be rude, and I know which ones of you are, I will flat out block you next time. I cannot tolerate this kind of behavior on my channel or videos. Got it? Good. Cheerio! I wonder what social media has for the Magic Red Adventures these days. Oh wow, Homie Man's liked my Magic Red Adventures page. Well, isn't that something? That's quite an honor. Let's see what's up on Let's see what's up on Twitter. That's it! I've had enough of this madness! This means war!